What's going on, guys? Thank you for joining me for this module. Today we have Terris Johnson, who currently works at Amazon and who has a track record in user experience design. Thank you so much for joining us, Terris. You want to talk about your background and you want to talk about what you do right now, and just introduce yourself in this module.
So thanks, Sharif, for introducing me. My name is Terris Johnson. I am a user experience designer at AWS. So part of Amazon, but we're more of the infrastructure side of things, bigpower.com. So if you're not familiar with AWS, at the very least, if .com is working, no, we're doing our job. So that's sort of the current position that I occupy. Previously, I went to school at Georgia Tech, so I have a technical background. Got started in marketing agencies and various startups in Atlanta, and made my way to Amazon in 2019.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Terris. We're going to jump right into some of these questions, and then towards the end, we are going to have some links and information provided for the students to be able to follow you on LinkedIn or any social media channels, anything like that. Okay. So let's jump right into some of these questions. So for the first question, how does your previous career path and schooling help you with user experience design?
Yeah, previous career path and schooling. So again, I went to Georgia Tech, and my degree was a split between computer science and liberal arts. So it's a mix of media studies and technical, literally programming, building apps, websites, things like that. So it's a combination of the liberal arts plus computer science, and this prepared me mostly for communicating and interfacing with developers daily, understanding how to speak their language, understanding how things work, and how we can partner to get things done. My experience in the workforce, as far as preparing me for a job like Amazon, has been in marketing agencies in Atlanta. So I've worked on large accounts like for Verizon Wireless, BB&T, AngelSoft, just to name a few. So Krispy Kreme, so just various brands. And so working with different clients with different needs, different timelines, and different goals really helped prepare me for AWS and the different types of customers, which are typically much larger in scale. So that's been the newest thing on the job. So that'll be the thing that I take with me leaving AWS is the scale and internationalization.
Right.
So that's been one of the bigger focuses here.
Okay. Being in the UX design space, what are some of the things you've been doing outside of work?
Inside the UX design space. So mainly this has been like side projects. I believe strongly in work-life balance, and so the day-to-day job is pretty strenuous. There's quite a bit to cover there. So I get a ton of UX during the core hours or during business hours. I try to just do more fun and art-related things outside of work. So similarly to you, I have skills in graphic design and dreams to do more animation. I haven't done as much as I like, but setting myself up with projects like that outside of work to help then create sort of this feedback into my daily work. So learning skills outside that pertain to UX, but mostly do UX work on the job.
Gotcha. Okay. How is your work and life balance working as a UX designer?
It's pretty good. I've heard horror stories about working at Amazon, so I'm joining the company. And apparently I'm on a decent team to where they believe in that as well. So again, it's really very much so based on the team that you work for. So it's very important to interview. We'll get into more of this, but interview and understand the team you're joining. So my team is not affected as much by the holiday cycles and things like that. So we're able to maintain a consistent sort of workflow and work stream throughout the year. So yeah, I have a great work-life balance currently. There are some days that are 12-hour, but they're rare, and you only do them when necessary. So I do them.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's kind of like at for myself, having worked at AT&T, it's like you kind of have to find that work-life balance, and let other individuals know, because there's so many different offices all around the country, and then we have a team that's based offshore, so it's kind of like you have to work with that team, you have to work with the time frame of working on different projects, and then when people respond. So it's kind of you got to balance that out on a daily basis. but yeah, you get it.
Very similar to Amazon, having to find that, because the work's going to keep coming. Customers need the services, so that's very normal.
Gotcha. Do you ever encounter imposter syndrome, and if so, how do you counter it?
I like this question. Imposter syndrome, it's a fun one. It's on Twitter a lot, Instagram a lot. Imposter syndrome. I definitely dealt with it. I don't deal with it now. I was dealing with it when I first joined Amazon, or AWS rather. It comes and goes, right?
Right.
It really kind of deals with your understanding of the current information and the conversations on your team and things like that. You may feel out of place if you don't understand acronyms or certain terminology the team is using loosely and freely, and everyone else understands. So I've also attributed to knowing, this won't be possible in your first job, but you will get a better sense of how long it takes for yourself to become acclimated to the environment. So you may feel imposter syndrome for the current job that you're in, but you will, in your next role interview, and understand, okay, it takes me 3 months to get warmed up in any company. It's not just this company, but any company. You start to see trends for yourself as you move from place to place. So for me to counter it is understanding the timeline. At AWS, it was extending that 3-month window, because usually 3 months, give me 90 days, that's my kind of person. Give me 90 days and I'm pretty good to go in terms of what's going on, where's the customer, what does our product do, what are all the different pieces of it. 3 months, smaller shop, pretty easy. But for a large enterprise level international product, you're looking at, I'm at year 2, coming on to the second year, you're still learning. So it's really just kind of extending that time frame, giving yourself time to grow, especially as designers, and also having blinders on as you work, because you don't want to compare yourself to someone who's been in the industry way more years than yourself.
That is true.
But you're comparing yourself. You don't want to do that. So that would be one thing, is just have blinders, have personal goals, keep yourself kind of in line with that. I wouldn't use another person's metric to measure yourself. You have to create your own and sort of stay focused, set your own goals, and it will come and go. I can't say there's a solution to this imposter syndrome. It'll come and go. But do know it's normal. So there's no need to freak out if you're feeling it. It's quite normal for the job, and you've interviewed and already are on the team, so there's no need to second guess. That would be something I would caution new hires. Just don't second guess. You've already passed the test. Now it's time to learn and perform. And failure is not a terrible thing. It is the way to learning. So it's the way to improvement. Failure is the way to improvement. So just kind of keep those things.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's great advice towards the end right there. What was your most difficult UX interview, and how did you prepare for it?
Yeah, this was a good one, because it's definitely AWS. That was the hardest, bar none. And why was it hard? It was difficult because they actually had a culture around hiring that you have to align to, which was new for me. Again, agencies and small businesses and startups don't have as much rigor and didn't invest in hiring structure and things like that. So it was really more about the work and what you said on the interview or in the call. Amazon, they have a way of interviewing similar to most big tech companies. There is a way to do it, and so learning that way and asking folks who've been through it before, as well as the recruiter, that was the way that made that easier. But it required lots of prep. I made sure not to hit the apply button until I had my portfolio ready. For anyone to view it. So it wasn't just for the recruiter to view it. It was literally for, not that I was trying to appeal to a Jeff Bezos or someone at that level, but you just prepare yourself that this is the only chance you'll get. So have everything ready, have everything good to go, then click the apply button, and then I guess see what happens after that. But luckily that turned into an interview loop, an interview cycle for me. The prep, doing the portfolio first, definitely practice interviewing. If you feel nervous about it, practice it. What else? Go through your portfolio, present it to some friends, things like that. Or have friends review it. I had a friend of mine review it who actually works at Amazon as well.
Gotcha.
Review my portfolio, he gave me feedback, I incorporated that feedback, and then put the reply button. You want to treat it like a project.
Right.
Like you would treat an UX project. This time it's for you. And so the stakes may be higher, you may feel more pressure, but kind of lean into that and then just be extra prepared. Fine-tune the interviewing, who, what, when, where, why, and how. Make sure your projects look nice and have a beginning, middle, and end. The problem you're trying to solve, who's the customer, make sure you talk about those things. And generally, just be prepared to talk for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Especially for organizations. You may have to interview with 10 to 20 people.
Yeah. Nice. And just a quick question, like how, for your experience, how long would you say that process was for AWS?
So I think typically folks say, and this is, cannot quote me on this, and this is not representative of any actual data, or anything like that, or AWS. I'm just guessing here, but I've heard from a month to a year or two. It depends on the role you're applying for. Again, we're talking a large company with various roles at different levels. Coming out of college, you probably have a higher chance than some of the higher levels. They do hire straight out of school, and so a lot of those folks I work with, at Amazon. So there's just different paths. It really depends on what team, when you're applying. And what role you're shooting for.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. How do you think design impacts business, services, and daily lives?
So design. This is actually a really funny question, because to have to explain it, it's strange. Right? To have to explain design, the value of design is actually very strange, because everything around us is design.
Right.
We're not looking at root level solutions anywhere, and nor are the most successful products root level in the first place. So when I say root level, what does that mean? Your iPod is encased in something. But not only that, it's not just the robot in and of itself, or the chipset, or anything like that. It's this concert of things happening together, which is design. So everyone designed, even engineers. But if we're talking visual design, well, there's still that. You have industrial design folks who are working on the casing of that iPod. You also have your graphic design folks who are branding and creating these really punchy and memorable silhouettes and visual cues and things like that to carry that industrial design through to from factory to pocket sort of thing.
Right.
So there's like design is a part of all of it, and down to the documents and the word processing doc used to explain the product. So it's literally everywhere, and I'd actually flip the question on its head and say, what isn't? How are you successful without design?
Yeah.
Would be my kind of, I guess, snarky response to that. But it's also true. Like Apple's leading, Samsung's leading. There's reasons for these things, and it's a concert, and so design is very much a part of that.
Right. Okay. Can you tell me about your process on how you work with developers, product, and even business teams?
That's a fairly large question. Do you have any? Is there like a particular space you would like to know more about?
I guess like we can cut it down to like how, what's your process on working with developers?
So working with developers. So the developer, I consider myself and the developer like one unit. So it's like we're together. Like without the developer, I can't get much done, especially a tech company. They can get much done, but that's where has this been validated for customers, because they operate at a root level, the developer. Has this been validated for customers? If they can't say that confidently, then I'm very useful to them in that case as well.
Gotcha.
So to me, working with developers, one is a mental shift. This is a partner to get something done. They may not believe in design, so you may have to deal with that, which is okay. They do believe in design, you just have to figure out where they believe in it. Because
that's a good way to put it.
Like certain IDEs over others, right?
Yeah.
Development environments, but you do one over the other. Well, why? Oh, this one has more quick key commands. Okay, well, some has a third code or I can tell variables from functions, things like that. So yeah, developers, key players, you have to speak their language and translate, because they tend to speak from their point of view. And so it becomes because they're not designers, they're very much looking at the computer, and they understand the computer very well. And so if you can understand that, and speak to that or speak around that, to make you're not speaking the same language. That's another thing that's important to sort of declare up front, because we've had many misunderstandings between design and developer or development, just on terminology. I consider a component on a page a thing that does something for the customer, and it's holistic. Dev doesn't think so. The input field is a component.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I'm thinking the card with the input field and buttons is a component that they're thinking. No, the input field is a component. The label is a component. It's like, oh, okay. So shifting your brain to take where you are, map it to where they are. Then you really get that partnership going, and it's actually some of the most fun work is to work with someone who has a different skill set. So you're working on the same problem, so you're coming at the same problem from different angles.
Exactly.
And it's actually the coolest way to work. Again, I did a lot of this in school too, so I'm very used to it. That's what I would say. Learn to speak their language, understand that there will be miscommunication, and once you are in sync, that's a fantastic partnership, and you should lean into that. So I'm kind of speaking around specifics intentionally because it's different in different environments, but at least have those top of mind. You want that partner. You want someone that's going to think about a problem from a different angle as well as be close to implementation. So they're definitely a partner. Do not shy away from building connections with developers.
Yeah. Completely agree. And that's kind of like what my situation too. It's like you're working with developers who have a vast amount of knowledge on the system that you're working with, and so you definitely want to build that relationship with your developmental team, so that say if you build some type of component, well, maybe that component just doesn't work, or maybe you built it to a way that it just doesn't work for their standards, or it's just that system that they're working with, it doesn't have the capability of implementing that specific component. Like for example, if I were to build something for AWS, not AWS, sorry, what is it? Adobe's, I remember the name of it. Is it AWS? It's not. Yeah, Adobe Experience Manager. Yeah, that one. So yeah, say if you build something for Experience Manager, or you want to build something for, because like Experience Manager, it's a very older system. And then now we're building newer systems to be able to house like newer code bases or whatnot. So it's like you want to make sure that if you're building something for that team, it can run it versus like a newer tool that would be able to run anything, right? But yeah, that's
actually a good point too.
Yeah.
Developers will have a ton of knowledge, historical and legacy knowledge. Typically, developers stick around some of these places more for a longer period of time. So yeah, you will have that. It's very good to have like the most knowledgeable person be one of the lead developers.
Right. All right. So, what's the most important aspect of your portfolio? And then like how could somebody catch the recruiter's attention, basically?
Again, this depends on the company you're applying for. Number one, that will set you up for the bar that you're being measured against. graphic design role or like heavily visual role or heavily visual companies, the companies that we like the most, or like have a fondness for, they're going to have those tougher, more stringent interviewing processes, and so they're going to be looking at your portfolio for different things.
Right.
So some companies like to see more process, some companies like to see more artifacts. So you want to know that upfront when you're applying for a company.
Gotcha.
AWS is an artifacts or a process, was more of a process-driven interview process. There's still a portfolio component, so you still have to have those pieces there. But we're dealing with highly technical systems, so you want to at least make sure we're investing in talent that understands highly technical systems.
Yeah.
And then we can apply the visual with visual sensibilities, so that they're able to design within the context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, what was the question again? I actually started thinking of the question.
No, you're good. It was, like what's the most important aspect of your portfolio, and just how do you catch their attention?
And so, so once you determine if it's a process-driven review process or company versus an artifact-driven company, that's going to let you know how to tailor fit your portfolio to fit one of those two. So if you want to stand out in either of those situations, you need to appeal to that sensibility in either scenario.
Right.
Or process. And then the way you can appeal is by showing more of your process across projects. That's the process-driven one. Or you just show more artifacts if it's more of the artifact-driven one. They want to see pretty things, they want to see end results. Don't care so much about how you get there type of thing. Maybe they have a process that they use that they will share and train you into.
Gotcha.
Versus having you invent one, which tends to be the case in startups and to an extent Amazon or AWS, depending on the team, because some teams are bigger than others, so they have more maturity, design maturity than others.
Right.
And so again, all of these answers are it depends, but intentionally so, because you have to understand that you're doing contextual catering, and that's your starting point. There isn't one way to do it. You need to understand what it is you're shooting for and approach it from that angle.
Right. Makes sense. Okay. So this kind of is coming on our last question here, but what are 2 pieces of advice you can give to individuals pursuing a UI UX design career?
Yes. So I do want to make a clarification. So for those who are into UI UX, pick which side of that acronym you want to lean into. So UI or UX, again, because that UX driven role is going to be more process driven. UI is going to be more artifact driven. You have artifacts from that process driven approach, but again, the artifact one is going to be more the UI, more of what do the buttons look like? What is the shape of the buttons? What is the style guide that led to this? What is the brand thinking that led to this? But the other side is going to be what customer problems are you solving? Because the artifact side may be focused more on market segments and appealing to a certain audience type of work, where this other side is going to be like, okay, well, we have the audience. Now, once they get here, what do they do?
Right.
So that's sort of it's really a different discussion. I even train the teams I'm working with now. I don't use the term UI when I talk about myself. I only use the term UX because I am coming from more of that research, psychology, process-driven angle. I'm not coming from the brand, the sentiment. I'm not coming from that side of things. Visual sentiment, visual cues. I'm not coming from that side.
Sure.
So, what was the question again?
No, you're good. Just 2 pieces of advice for people pursuing a UX design career.
Yeah, so once you decide between those 2, pick UI or pick UX.
Right.
Straddle the line only if you're going into like a startup that needs both.
Right.
Eventually you have to figure out which one you want to specialize in.
Yeah.
UI can get very deep because you get into prototyping and like animated detail, especially now if you look at the Tesla interface. A UI designer there is going to have a lot more to do than someone working on Microsoft Word, from a visual animation styling standpoint. Microsoft Word's got way more features,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to be more of a UXer's world. But again, you have to pick between UI and UX. So that'd be my first piece of advice. Second piece of advice is definitely read between the lines of different roles, jobs that you take on. The UX role at the dentist could turn into something very useful in your job at the next major bank or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to kind of be agnostic and be problem focused. You don't want to be necessarily a champion of a particular industry as a UX designer. This feedback would change if you're a UI designer. Maybe that's not true for UI, but for UX, you're trying to help people get from point A to point B. That doesn't have an industry tied to it, right? That's anything. So you want to see the common thread in all the work that you do, because that's going to give you that leverage.
Gotcha.
Look for the common thread and then determine if you want to focus on UI or UX.
Yeah. Okay. That was some great piece of advice there. Yeah. Thank you so much, Terris. That concludes the interview for this course. Is there any last minute thoughts you may have on the UX design or anything that you want the students to know as they're watching this video?
Yeah, definitely don't stop learning. Fuse those interests you have. So like if you're into video games or if you're into sports, bring that to UX. Like sports does a really good job at making data accessible to folks, despite it being mainly a physical activity. However, the audience is very stat-driven and very much able to track stories and narratives over time. I keep forgetting these questions. At the end, this is how I know I'm tapping out. This is how I know I'm tapping out.
Right.
The last three questions. What was this again? Last thing you want to tell people?
So any tips?
Sports or what was the other one? I completely forgot. It was sports or something. A video game. There it is. Yeah, sports or video games. Know that audience, know what you're designing for, and fuse your interests into the work you do every day. Yeah, that would be the takeaway. It's like definitely don't isolate yourself. You are a whole person. Bring that into your job role, and it will help other industries learn from others. So that's really what we're doing in UX, is kind of cross-pollinating things that we're really here and bringing them here.
Gotcha. Do you have any social media links or any links that you want me to post on screen and have the students click on as well?
If you'd like to stay connected or stay in contact, my main social media account that I would like to talk to students or keep in touch with professionals is LinkedIn. So that's Terris Johnson. So LinkedIn / Terris Johnson or Johnson Terris, one of the two. Then there's also a YouTube channel that my buddies are working on. They're doing a lot of education on UX design and how to interview and different things like that, similar to the topics we discussed today. You have a YouTube channel called Bold, so that's BOLD on YouTube. They focus on, again, UX training, UX information, as well as their Decipher podcast, which deals with more topics around UX and things like that. So again, that's Bold on YouTube, BOLD. They also have a Decipher, DECYPHER podcast on various RSS feeds and podcast channels out there.
I will make sure to get that in the hands of the students. There will be a link for them to click on, as well as that stuff will be on screen as well. All right. Thank you so much, Terris. I appreciate your time. I appreciate this interview. This was great. You have a great rest of the day.
All right. Thank you, Sharif.
All right.
See you.
Bye.